After many seasons as one of the quickest, Costa finally did it and claimed his first title. But now we reset and the slate is wiped clean. With many drivers showing improvement recently, this will no doubt be an intriguing season as we get ready to watch round one of the Lotus 79 Sunday Grand Prix Series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and joining me in the booth is IMSA driver Joey Atterbury. Behind the scenes is our director, Ryan Bauer, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. The Red Bull Ring did see the 79 race here in an older incarnation when it was still called the Österreich Ring. Let's check out what the modern version is like with our track guide.
Welcome to the Red Bull Ring. Located near Spielberg, Austria, this track began life in a much more fast and sweeping format. Having gone through multiple different owners, it eventually was snatched up by Red Bull and has its 3 different layouts you see today. While they range roughly between 1 to 2.5 miles in length, the thing they hold in common are fast straights, hard braking zones, and very few corners. In fact, the longest and most common layout, the Grand Prix course, has only 9 of them. Spots like Remus and Gosser are the most popular corners for overtakes, but both involve dramatic elevation changes. Each have their perils. Remus tends to see drivers make contact when the blind cutback often goes wrong, whereas Gosser tempts you into braking far too late, and the downhill nature shoots cars miserably into the gravel. A few swift bends still scatter the track, with turns like Lauda, Rent, or A1 really testing a driver's accuracy at high speeds. However, most of them don't send you off into the grass. Rather, there is a lot of paved runoff. But they often include some nasty curves most cars will want to avoid hitting, as they've been known to damage suspension and undertrays. A variety of types of racing compete here, with everything from lower Formula open-wheelers to motorcycles, touring cars, and all the way up to Formula One holding events regularly. Set among the gorgeously picturesque Alps and including great racing on a challenging and history-rich circuit, it's easy to see why fans and drivers are both eager every time they come for a race.
You know, ironically, Joey, this track, when it was rebuilt in the 90s, was kind of divisive. Fans were upset that they changed the nature of it. And yet now, it's one of the most popular.
It is an incredible facility out here, and looking at it, 9 turns. You think 9 turns can't be that bad, but just over 2.5 miles, and you are hauling the mail at a few points on this racetrack. Not only that, but it provides some good braking and passing opportunities as well, and huge elevation. It kicks off all in turn 1, also headed uphill into that really, really tight hairpin up there. I believe it's turn 3. One thing's for sure, these Lotus 79 cars with the downforce they make, they're going to be glued to the racetrack throughout this entire lap, and can't wait to see the speeds that they reach.
Should put on a very good show, no doubt. Now, as for last season's championship, as I mentioned, Juan Costa wound up taking it. And look at the margin, more than a win's worth over Timothy Reed by the end of it. But Jack David Spickett has really become quite a racer in this series. He wound up 3rd in the points and definitely was up there towards the front for much of last season. From there, he had a few battles that wound up kind of close. Finnegan and Freckleton had to sort it out by just a mere few points for that 4th position, and then down between Freesia and Clapper, it was also pretty close. But Freesia, I'm sure, going to be hoping to maybe see a little bit higher up finishing position. Why don't we take a look at the F2 championship and how that wound up?
Last season, it was all Tim Britton leading the way. Keith Herner with a valiant effort there, but still 47 points back in 2nd place. And then a little bit closer of a battle with the Kurt Clapper, Steve Sarles. I see a few recognizable names in here. Patrick Samaran, also Shady Ahmad, one of our regulars, as well as Andrew Eng. A lot of these in classic. Shout out to Sam Ryman back there, P9 in that F2 driver standings.
Absolutely. He's been also showing up quite a bit himself. Now, let's take a look at the race details for today. Since it is such a short lap, it's going to be 27 of them that they have to do around here to complete the race. It's an open setup series, and as you heard Joey talking about, very fast track, but at the same time, they do want some speed in the corners, so we'll see who is able to get the best out of both worlds in that. No spare car if you wound up hitting anything or anybody. Usually it's more a sense of hitting another car than the wall at this track, but you never know with such high speeds. Drive-through penalty at 17 incidents and DQ at 25. There's definitely some places where they've got some paved runoff that you can't abuse that too much. So keep an eye out to see if anybody goes over the edge on that one. And it looks like we've got a few times in on the board in qualifying with the controller king, Phil Reed, on the provisional pole.
And by quite a margin as well, almost half a second over Kimmo Viilakainen. So looks like that number 4 machine of Kimmo back to putting down some qualifying efforts. I know last season he was primarily starting from the back, and also looks like Timothy Vaughn just slips into provisional P2.
All right, so Timothy Vaughn with a great lap there. Kimmo Viilakainen up to third currently, still waiting on Juan Costa, who's just out onto the track now to start setting some laps. You have plenty of time with such short laps to try and put one down, maybe waiting to see if the track will cool down just a little bit. So Reed continues to hold on to it by about a quarter of a second, still waiting for Timothy Reed and Jack David Spickett to set times as Phil Reed comes around for that second lap off of the final corner and down to the timing line. Is he going to be even quicker? Yes, he is, by about 1/10 of a second, so that puts him down to a 19.3.
Here we ride along board with the other Reed, Timothy Reed, spelled differently, no relation, as he puts down, let's see, 21.4. Gonna put Timothy Reed a little bit further in the back of the pack right now, but at least putting down a qualifying time.
Juan Costa just starting his first flyers. We're watching Pablo Suarez as well. The number 17 looking for the braking down here into Schlossgold. Difficult to try and get that one just right into there with the heavy downhill and the high speeds, but it looks like he's nailed it. And now he brings it into the infield section through Rauch and into Vert.
This is where the car, I feel, is really at home, making the downforce, higher speeds, and it continues through the back half of this racetrack as you accelerate up through the gears and you come up to this very, very fast right-hander.
Yep, coming up into Jochen Rindt. And a little bit off the apex there. That might hurt him. Nicholas Morelli moves up to 9th in the meantime. Pablo Suarez out of the final corner, a little bit closer down to where he needs to be on that curb. And it's a 21-1. That's not going to do well for him. He's down in 13th. Still waiting on Juan Costa here, our current reigning champion, to set his first lap time. Just 2 more corners to go.
He will have enough time to do a second if he needs to. What we're looking for is a 119 out of Juan Costa as he comes through the final turn. Nice and clean. Timothy Reed actually just goes to P1 with a 119.2. Juan Costa third right now with a 119.3, but he will have enough time to do the second lap.
And last season, it looked like he had the measure of pretty much everybody over the course of the season. Just kind of ran away with a lot of wins and kept people well out of reach. So has everybody kind of responded here? Are they trying to take the fight to Juan and see if they can make him work for a second one in a row? Only one driver hasn't qualified, and no surprises, it's Jason Clapper. So 17 out of the 18 have put one on the board, but very few have laps left to try and complete here, as Pablo Suarez and Juan Costa are our last 2.
Joe, I was curious if these drivers are going to be straddling the curbs, and Juan Costa certainly is doing exactly that, just maximizing the width of the racetrack. I was curious if it was going to potentially hurt the underside of the cars because those are gator curbs. I think maybe the only one they have to worry about is through the final turn, that compression.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it looks like Suarez only up to 15th with his second lap. Costa around the final turn. Let's see what it is as he brings it down to the line. It's going to be a 19-1. That's going to be good enough for pole, but just barely 0.5 of a second over Timothy Reed. We've got a fight on our hands. So here's your starting order. Juan Costa starting from the pole, as Timothy Reed starting from P2, and Phil Reed starting from third. Kimmo Viilakainen going to try and make up for some mistakes last season and see if he can maybe have a few better results there from fourth. Jack David Spickett will be P5, and Timothy Vaughn in 6th. Dylan Freckleton manages 7th today. Juho Reina in the 8th position, as Tim Britton will start 9th, and row 5 is completed by Nathan Finnegan.
Here in 11th place, we have Nicholas Morelli. John Stevens next to him in 12th. Then we have Barry West and Keith Herner in row number 7. Pablo Suarez with the top 15 in qualifying. Kostas Zafiris in 16th. And 2 more back here, Sam Ryman and Jason Clapper.
All right, cars now start to grid up about 87 Fahrenheit out on the track itself today. 84 air temperature, kind of warm, I gotta think, for the Alps out there. But the drivers won't be as worried about the air temperature. They'll be looking out for what is on the paved surface itself. Little bit of wind. Not sure if it'll bother them too much, though, Joey.
I don't think the wind is going to bother him. And I was checking out the time. It's about 7:15 p.m. out there in the virtual world. So I don't think that the track temperature is going to get any warmer than it is. I think it should stay pretty level.
Apparently the driver's OCD is being triggered here because out of the top 7, only Tim Reed and Phil Reed are out of order in terms of iRating. Tim's in second, and he's the number 3, and Phil's in third as the number 2. So unfortunately, everybody will just have to suffer with that one as we're waiting on the front row of the grid to start up. Now, let's remember that this track is known for that first corner often causing problems. And even if you make it through there, coming up to the second braking zone and Remus, you can often see drivers getting tangled as they get a little too eager going 3 and maybe, if they're ambitious, 4 wide sometimes into that hard uphill hairpin. But we'll see how the drivers manage it here today, as I think we are simply waiting on Viekainen, who is now out there. So it looks like we are ready to go as the engines now start to rev and the lights come up here for the first round of the season, and the green flag is out as they charge down to the first corner. Kimmo Viekainen is off like a rocket ship, and he is up into second place even before they get to the braking zone. Can he hold on to it? It looks like he's got it, as everybody in behind is going to be able to smoothly get through Niki Lauda.
Yeah, looks like a very clean start from our entire 18-car field, but you're right, Kimmo Viekainen with an excellent start was able to go around the outside in turn 1, and now here we go into this sharp turn 3 hairpin for the first time.
Timothy Reed trying to take it away from Phil Reed, but it didn't quite work out. So Viekainen with an excellent start here, up into P2, battle for third. Phil Reed's got it. Tim Reed wants it. Jack David Spickett is in there. A lot of side-by-side coming down, and unfortunately off the course, Phil Reed has a little slide.
Phil Reed just got in too deep, and Joe, he was inches away from the back of Viekainen. Oh man, that could have been disaster for second and third place.
Gotta be kicking himself. He is down to 14th place after the first lap and starting on the second row. But up at the front of it, Juan Costa has control of things once again. This does not bode well for everybody else. His qualifying may have been tight, but it looks like his race pace, at least if the first lap is anything to go on, is looking mighty good.
Yeah, I would starting to be sweating if I was anybody in second or third place. Actually, looks like we got a slowdown from Jack David Spickett coming out of the first lap. You never want to see that, and usually that happens from running too wide there on that second to last turn.
Absolutely. So you got to watch out for that paved runoff. Yes, it's there to save you, but if you abuse it, the sim will automatically make you give that time back. Timothy Vaughn versus Dylan Freckleton now for 4th place. Freckleton on the inside. Timothy way overshoots the corner. He's going to be able to return safely, though.
And now look at this. It's Reina versus Jack David Spickett side by side going down the hill. Nathan Finnegan in tow. Looks like Jack David Spickett on the right side of the racetrack, though, going to have the advantage. Reina keeps it along the left side. We're going to see if they're going to, now they zipper out. JDS back to 5th place.
So Juha slots back in behind him in P6, and look at this train forming with JDS at the front of it. This goes all the way back to 12th place with Pablo Suarez, with drivers forming something of a peloton here. We'll see what the slipstream allows them. This place is known for that tow being very mighty.
The cars are generally running a higher downforce level here, and that produces a bigger wake, a bigger slipstream effect for anybody following. And Joe, another purple lap from our leader Costa. He's on it.
He's nearly 2 seconds ahead now. Viekainen's going to have to start responding, or Timothy Reed's going to have to try and make passes. The other Reed, Phil Reed, is going to give us a second view of his incident. Wow, you were not kidding about how close that was.
And it's downhill there. It's so tricky to get the car stopped, and we're going to get a first-hand view of how close you get to the gearbox of Kimmo.
Well, it was the first lap. They'd only had two real braking events. I wonder if the brakes and the tires really hadn't been up to temperature quite yet.
Agreed. Couple that with being in the draft. Just a lot of things going on, and unfortunately it caught Phil Reed out. This is a battle for second place, though. Timothy Reed trying to get around Kimmo. Remember, Kimmo had that excellent start, but he hangs it tough around the outside.
Wow. And he's going to be able to hold on to it because it's two right-handers here coming through Rint and A1. So surely he's going to be able to do this, or will he? Timothy Reed going to fight right back with the same measures. Both of them unwilling to give it up, side by side around half the lap. And it is indeed Timothy Reed in the end who manages to make the overtake.
Made the slingshot work, but here comes Kimmo back into turn one on the inside, shows his nose. They're going to stay too wide through multiple corners, pretty much half of this lap, but finally Kimmo has to tuck back in line.
And Freckleton is loving this. You guys keep that one up. Is in the background, that is Morelli and a couple others, it looks like. I see Jason Clapper off. Looks like Phil Reed. Oh, more problems here for the Controller King.
Phil just got barely caught up in this, but watch this yellow car. Nicholas Morelli, he's going to lose it in turn one. The red car barely gets by. Pablo Suarez really is the one that comes in and clobbers him.
Those curbs, you got to watch out. You can see even on the exit as well, that giant sausage curb does not play well with these very low-slung cars. Like current modern F1 cars, they use those ground effects, and so they need them to be right up against the ground where possible. And unfortunately, if you hit those curbs wrong, you can see the results are not good. Meanwhile, as we come back to you, Rhino, here in sixth place, Jack David Spigot has not been able to shake him.
JDS is trying to chase down Dylan Freckleton, and you mentioned it a little bit earlier. This is kind of like a big train, and there's maybe little baby gaps in between cars, but even goes back Nathan Finnegan, Timothy Vaughn still very much involved in this battle, because if any one of these cars starts to go side by side, it's just going to suck up. It's going to close in the rest of the competitors.
Well, for most people, a baby gap would mean trendy clothes for your child. For these guys, unfortunately, it means that they can't really relax. As we're watching Timothy Vaughn's view of Nathan Finnegan just in front of him. Remember, Timothy had a bit of an oops into that very turn early in the race and is still playing catch-up. He's going to get a nice little tow here on the way on the Schoenberger rod, but not enough as he stays within the tire tracks there of that number 9.
It can be difficult to pass here, even though we talked about it earlier, the higher downforce levels, it means it is a powerful slipstream, but it also means the dirty air is pretty powerful behind a car when you go through these sections. So it's kind of a give and take out there, and looks like Timothy Vaughn definitely wants to get this 7th place. And Joe, speaking of something else other than this battle which we're watching, I've been really impressed with Dylan Freckleton so far. He's actually gone up there and he's chasing down Kimmo Viilakainen, might actually get a podium today.
Yeah, we were commenting last season. He took his first podium finally last time out in the series. So he's been making improvements here and there. And he's obviously backing it up here today, looking to maybe get another one to his name. But Kimmo Viilakainen keeps him at arm's length with a much better exit out of Nicky Lauda.
Yeah, and I see that Timothy Reed is kind of scooting away from the number 4 car, and if he continues to do so, I feel like Viilakainen might be open to a little bit of an attack if Dylan Freckleton can hang in there with that draft.
So plunging down the hill once again, you can see, like we heard Joey describing before, these gaps kind of forming between the drivers, but they're not really huge margins at this stage. If they can keep them from becoming too big, as Timothy Vaughn sees an opening right there, and Nathan Finnegan just about gives that spot up, switching across as they dive amongst each other to try and find track position. Timothy just can't quite get by Nathan Finnegan.
He's so close here. Does he dare look to the inside? He lifts off the throttle. Timothy Vaughn being very smart on the racetrack. He wants to get by Nathan Finnegan, but he's not taking too many risks right now. Actually has a pretty good run going down the front straightaway. I don't know if it's close enough. Turn 1 is a very small brake zone. He once again opts to stay in the slipstream, try to get a better exit out of 1.
All right, so as they fly towards Remus here, he's going to have a nice little pull. Does he dare try and make it happen into here? Or is he going to wait till later? Because sometimes you can get a fight back from the other car. Oh, they make contact. And it is going to be Vaughn who comes out the worse on it, as Finnegan just opens up the corner to leave him a little more space, and Nathan runs away.
A little bit of a half spin here. You saw Timothy Vaughn really throw it deep in on the brakes, and there was just the slightest of touches going in. And something we haven't talked about, this is an open setup. I wonder if we're seeing 2 different downforce levels where Timothy Vaughn felt like he had to be aggressive in the braking zones with a higher downforce package than what Nathan Finnegan had with a greater top speed down the straightaway.
You know, I bet you're onto something with that, so I think that's a good call. We'll have to ask a few of the drivers to see if it was a little split in the community on which way to go, as Juho sees the car of Jack David Spickett up in front and is starting to memorize that gearbox with how long he's been watching. We still have a lot of racing left to go as well. Just in front of them, we're seeing little glimpses of Dylan Freckleton. So they're keeping him within range as well. Like we said, none of the drivers really seeming to be able to pull as far away from each other as I'm sure they'd like to.
I'm pretty impressed with how much each one of these drivers is stretching it out. It's not because of the dirty air. I really feel like it's just the outright pace of the cars, and they're so close, but they're half a tenth faster or half a tenth slower, and it's just kind of built up to about 7/10 of a second, 8/10 of a second between these cars. But the way that they carry speed through these corners, the way this racetrack is shaped with elevation, trust me, all it takes is one little slip up and we'll have a battle.
Back to Jason Clapper. Hasn't made as many positions as we're used to seeing out of him, but you never know. He certainly had an incredible run in the Camel GT Series yesterday at the Nürburgring. But right now, the number 11 sitting in 13th after starting last on the field. But we have to remember, I don't think we've mentioned yet, this is top split, Joey. So this is the cream of the crop racing in the 79s.
It's the best of the best, the highest strength of field out there. And the one thing that we didn't mention about Jason Clapper is, remember that Nicholas Morelli incident? He was also involved in that. So Jason Clapper kind of having to start from the back twice, kind of double the fun, if you will.
He gets it more than he bargained for, unfortunately. That's Pablo Suarez in front of him in the number 17 as they come into the braking uphill here. This is late in the evening, so the sun just kind of getting right in their eyes as it comes down over the hill out of that first corner. But now they try to work their way into the uphill braking here at Remus, and he's just not quite close enough, but he opens up the entry quite a bit here. Is this going to give it to him?
Well, Pablo Suarez just a little bit loose coming off of that final hairpin there, and here we go. Jason Clapper charging down the hill in the slipstream, pokes his nose out to the right, but really late on the brakes from Pablo, still side by side, but Jason Clapper able to put the power down, move him up to 12.
Nicely done. So the McLaren liveried number 11 over the Brabham liveried number 17 there down into the infield section of the track. Next on his list is Zafiris in the number 8 machine, who is also up 5 himself. So Costas is actually doing a nice little job working his way through the field, and he did qualify. So there you can see him now, as he's also trailing Barry West, a regular in this series in that yellow number 13. So once again, seeing a lot of cars just kind of hovering around each other. But a few battles have been popping up here and there, so we certainly are not lacking action at this stage. And the only car that we have lost out of our 18 is Phil Reed.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, the only DNF out there. And we just saw Timothy Vaughn go by Nathan Finnegan. If we remember, that was the incident from a few laps ago going into the hairpin, and you're going to see Nathan Finnegan realize Timothy Vaughn has more pace. He simply pulls over, points him by.
hanging on the right-hand side. Yeah, you're right. Absolute lift there. So maybe just wanting to get to the end of this race. I mean, these are difficult cars to master. Even these guys at the top, maybe thinking long-term, thinking survival over anything.
I think that Finnegan realized that, well, Timothy Vaughn just tried to pass me a handful of laps ago, and it almost ended in disaster for both of us. Where did he go, right? And then all of a sudden, he's back on my wing. He's clearly faster. There's no point in having disaster 2.0.
Yeah, I can feel you on that one. As Juan Costa is now about 3.5 seconds ahead, so he hasn't absolutely run away from the field. Timothy Reed is the next one down. Still, he's got a pretty comfortable gap at this stage, and there you can see the visual gap between them as they come off of that second braking zone and then come along the mountain straight, essentially, and then back down the hill into the braking of Schloss Golds. Top three, honestly, all about equidistant apart. Kimmo Viekainen also kind of falling away from Timothy Reed. As now we're going to check back in with Jack David Spickett with the retro Pepsi machine.
Nice little battle starting to form up here. I was thinking that maybe Freckleton was going to go chase down Viekainen, but it's actually been JDS chasing down Dylan here. And right behind JDS is actually Reina. So not only are we kind of close to a podium fight here if we can chase down Kimmo, but looking like we're going to have 3, maybe 4 cars involved in it. And going to see if Dylan Freckleton can hang on to that 4th place position, or if this familiar battle, JDS versus Dylan, is going to end in tears.
I was just realizing with the Pepsi scheme, I wonder, and I don't know if somebody's already done this, but JDS needs to get a Pepsi Man fire suit. Have you ever seen Pepsi Man before? I
have not seen Pepsi Man.
Okay, go Google that, and just be aware it's a Japanese thing from the 90s, but it's worth your time. Very funny stuff, but
oh, okay, I see it now. All right.
Yes.
That would be an interesting fire suit. I think it would match the livery very well, and it would kind of promote the superhero theme.
Exactly, yeah. So call out there for JDS if you're willing to try and give that a go. I'd love to see that out there, but right now he is focused on Dylan Freckleton in that 4th position. Before, Dylan was trying to threaten on Kimmo Viekainen, but now he's having to switch roles and try to play defense as that Pepsi car getting ever bigger in the mirrors, and we're getting close to the halfway mark of the race.
And crucially, JDS is pulled away from Reina, so he can really just focus on Freckleton in front, doesn't have to worry about anybody creeping up behind him. So this is the fight for 4th place on the racetrack, and I wonder where it'll come, because they've been very, very similar in terms of overall pace. There's got to be a point on the racetrack where maybe Jack David Spickett is a little bit faster, or maybe Dylan is slipping up a little bit.
Yeah, it might be. We've seen that these cars sometimes can be stronger or weaker towards the end of the race, depending on how the driver sets it up. So I wonder if Dylan Freckleton had a car that is pretty good early on in the run, just struggles a little bit maybe later on. We'll watch and see as Jack David Spickett continues to kind of hunt him down.
And talking about the setups again, is that if you're running different downforce levels, as I'm starting to see line differences there between the two, but if you're running different downforce levels, that will also change how those tires wear over the course of these 27 laps, see if one prevails over another. But talking about the line difference, I saw Dylan Freckleton not go out and straddle those curbs, and actually I've seen him use kind of that similar method in the tracks in the past. He doesn't like to go out there and really use that runoff.
Wonder if that's just keeping the car safe, but maybe not making it as fast. Ooh, he's definitely pretty far to the left there that time, but it looks like that is within bounds, because Jack David Spickett also used it quite the same there and continues to catch on him. Last lap, the difference between them, though, was not much, as JDS was just about 16 thousandths of a second faster.
They're identical. I mean, identical in terms of lap times. I'm even looking at the speeds down the straightaways, and JDS in the tow, maybe 1 to 2 miles an hour advantage over Freckleton, which tells me, I bet you they're on an almost identical setup.
It's starting to look a little closer here, so this part of the track seems to favor that number 5. As Freckleton doesn't really go defensive, he's going to still kind of hold to the racing line, but not on the curbs. Doesn't seem to like straddling those, while Jack David Spickett is opening up every opportunity he can.
I would call Dylan's line more of a traditional line. I think sim racers tend to take advantage of what they can use out here in the virtual world, and the curbs there, they can be used in the real world. However, the vibrations from these gators, you definitely want to try to stay off of them. However, if you're trying to maximize lap time, we are here in the sim.
Indeed, and let's see what the lap time is going to be between them this time around. Did Dylan match him once again, or is JDS starting to catch up as we check in with Jason Clapper, who's now 7 positions up from where he started? Just massive improvements here from Jason Clapper, and his next on the list is currently Barry West.
I think he'll get around Barry West relatively easily here at the next straightaway. I'm not sure if he's going to make a move going down here into turn 1 a little bit far back. You see Barry not really go defensive, but kind of take his proper line that he wants to run. Jason really focusing on the exit, even run out of both of the cars.
Barry looked like he struggled a little bit to get the car to turn in, and here we see Clapper now starting to gain quite a bit, and he outbrakes him into the corner by a huge margin as well. Is he done with it, or we have an over-under? He's got it. Oh, and unfortunately Barry West has to get on the brakes as he spins up the tires and nearly loops it.
He just got on the accelerator a little bit too aggressively. You called it, spun up the rear tires, but thankfully was able to jump on the brakes, and now he's really late in there, almost collects Costa, but thankfully keeps it on the racetrack.
West looks a little out of sorts here. A couple mistakes quick in a row here from the number 13. Hopefully he can gather it back up and keep going, because he's still got Pablo Suarez behind him, so he could lose yet another position here. And then they've got finally a break before they reach Sam Ryman, who's about 3 seconds back there in 14th. But Jack David Spickett, let's check back in with him. This latest lap looks like he was actually much quicker, about 0.2 quicker, and this time he's got a huge run on Dylan Freckleton, who's not going to defend the inside. Sometimes that is a good call here. Lots up the insides does JDS, but he can't get the traction off the corner. The battle will carry on.
It's such a tricky acceleration zone, but crucially, JDS has the inside of the racetrack. Let's see how much he squeezes Dylan to the outside. I think Dylan realizes he's got to relinquish this position, tuck back in line behind Jack David Spickett, promote the number 5 up to 4th.
Well earned. He worked a long time for that one. Freckleton back down to 5th, but we have to say that Dylan is still up 2 from where he started, so I think this is still a good race for that 7 car. But JDS was just too much to hold back, at least at this stage. Look at him hold on to him, though. Dylan wants this one back, it looks like.
We talked about how powerful the slipstream is, and I think if Dylan is still the racer that we've always seen, he's not going to give up. He's going to keep challenging for that position. And we got to remember, these two weren't very far off in terms of pace. They qualified very similarly. I think Dylan still has a fast race car. We still have 11 laps to go.
Absolutely. So Freckleton just keeping himself within range, making sure that if JDS makes any sort of mistake, you can pounce on it, maybe snatch that position right back. I only just now realized about his purple scheme. He's got the TVR on the side, which is a very British car manufacturer. So I suppose that explains why he's got this very memorable color on the car. And he's got a nice little pole here, but I don't think it's quite enough.
That's interesting you point that out. I never noticed that either. And kind of taking me back a little bit giddy times. TVR makes some ultra cool cars. Not a lot of people know about them.
Absolutely. Not very common. I actually got to see some on my trip to Europe recently, so that was kind of neat to see those in person. But as they come in through Vert, that was a big slide out of Dylan, but he manages it well. I thought he was going to lose a lot of time, but he's still within reach.
I was curious to see the pace that JDS was going to have in clean air. I thought maybe he was going to be able to pull away a little bit, but I'm looking and he's actually struggling right now in clean air, a 120.5. So he was actually doing much, much better laps when he was chasing down Dylan.
Wonder if it's that JDS is just maybe quicker in a straight line, and Dylan's able to hold on where it counts. I don't know, but doesn't seem like Dylan's able to pass him here, as JDS is going to once again stay ahead of the 7. And this is frankly our best battle on the track right now. I know we've been covering this a lot, but everybody has pretty much spread apart, but these two can't seem to get away from one another.
I think that JDS does have more pace than Freckleton right now. However, he's just got to get back into the rhythm. He obviously went up there, chased down Dylan Freckleton, was able to execute the pass properly. However, he's just in a little bit of a hiccup right now. It's almost like you just got to get back into the rhythm of things, get back into your groove, and you'll start to pull away.
Well, that time he did, coming through Raukenvert. That was a much better run. That gets him a handier gap over the TVR machine as they plunge down through the final turn and onto the front stretch. Yeah, look at how big that is now. It's about a second between them. And that's Juho Raina kind of hovering behind. He's been watching this all. He hasn't been able to gain time while they were battling together. But now that Freckleton has made himself a small error of his own, Juho is maybe trying to see if he can get one more before this is all said and done.
I don't necessarily think it was a mistake out of Freckleton, because Dylan ran another 120.5, so an identical lap that he ran previously, except JDS picked it back up to his prior pace. He ran a 120.0, so I think we're just starting to see the number 5 machine pull it out a little bit over Freckleton, but you're right, Juho Raina back there also has pace, a 120.1, so almost a half a second faster than Dylan.
We've had our second incident that has sent a car to pit lane. John Stevens had a spin coming out of Remus, and he has since towed it. Let's take a look at this. I think this comes down to those exit curbs once again. Let's watch closely.
Yep, it's that big yellow exit curb, Joe, and usually what happens there is you have a flat piece of ground that you're accelerating on, but all of a sudden you jack up one wheel. It doesn't like that.
Certainly not, and that spun him off into the Armco, so into the pits he goes. He could still try and repair it depending on what sort of shape it's in. Didn't have a black and orange flag, so maybe he just felt like it was better to park it and was struggling out there today. Meanwhile, Freckleton still at about a second back. Last lap actually picked it up, a 20.2. These cars known for getting quicker as the fuel burns off, but 0.3 faster compared to the previous 2 laps. That's quite a jump.
It was a great pickup from Dylan Freckleton. He saw JDS kind of escaping a little bit, said, hey, you know what? Maybe I need to turn up the heat a little as well, and down to a 120.2, but still behind Juho Raina, a 119.8. I think that Juho is probably the fastest car out of this bunch of 3.
And all 3 of them, well, no, not all 3, because JDS has only been up 1, but Freckleton and Raina are both a gain of 2 and are on their way trending upwards this late in the race. But Juho Raina, Timothy Reed just took the fastest lap of the race. That's interesting. So he's picking it up at the very front of the field. But Juho Raina, let's see what this lap is in comparison. 19.7 for Freckleton, also picking it up, and Raina a 19.9. Dylan responding now. Oh, but now he throws it away as he spins off of the first corner. And how many positions will he lose in this as we look off the back of Raina? Looks like a couple more cars are going to be able to get by, and Freckleton falls all the way to 9th.
So this is the same reason why JDS got Freckleton. It's that outside yellow curb that we just saw bite John Stevens in a different area of the racetrack. He gets the left rear up on it, sets the car, spins it around.
Thankfully for Dylan, he does not hit anything. He's able to keep it out of the wall, but he took a while to get the car rolling, and that's what really cost him. This promotes Raina to 5th. Finnegan is up to 6th, and Tim Britton 7th. Timothy Vaughn into 8th position. A number of drivers getting an extra spot there as we're actually riding on board with Timothy Vaughn here, chasing on Tim Britton. This has now become our closest fight.
We must have missed it somewhere because Timothy Vaughn must have had a few incidents on the racetrack. Remember, he passed Finnegan twice already, and now he is back here in 8th place chasing down Tim Britton. So I think Timothy Vaughn getting some passing experience done today.
Absolutely, but maybe not in the way that he wanted. Remember, he had a little contact with Nathan Finnegan earlier, checking to see.
Then he went back, and then he caught Finnegan again, and then also got by Finnegan when he got let by, and then finds himself all the way back here.
It was lap 16. He had a full 360 doing the exact same thing. It is those darn exit curbs that this is the third car we've seen do this exact same thing. Here's the incident right here. Watch him exit as we just make it above the Red Bull banner.
Ooh, that one was...
Excuse me.
Apex.
No, I was completely wrong. So he went too far inside instead, but a beautiful pirouette has put him back around facing the right way, and he collects himself and now has to make this pass all over again.
You're right. He's going to be chasing down Nathan Finnegan, and Nathan's got to be up there saying, man, it's this guy again?
Well, and credit to Nathan's call to let him by. I've often seen drivers in the forums say if there's someone that you feel is being dangerous, let them through and you'll repass them a few corners later.
And I wouldn't even say that Timothy Vaughn is being dangerous. It's just that how he's driving the car right now, it's on a knife edge. He's not necessarily collecting anybody else with dangerous moves. However, if you're Nathan Finnegan, realize that out on the racetrack and run your pace, run your race that you are capable of.
And that's put him into 6th, 4 up from where he qualified. By the way, Jason Clapper currently up 8. Actually, we were saying he was up 7 before. He's gained another since we last looked. Been really impressive stuff here for him. But Timothy Vaughn versus Nathan Finnegan coming down into the braking. And the 6th car trying to keep just as close as he can here. He's got 5 more laps to go and a second and a half to make up. That's doable, but he's going to have to hustle.
I think he'll at least catch him. He was about a half second faster that previous lap, and Timothy Reed continues to set fastest laps up at the front of the field. And Joe, I know that you mentioned this a handful of laps ago. He's turned it on. I would say the last half of the race, he's been faster than Juan Mi.
By the way, John Stevens, for fans of him, has returned to the track. He's just a couple laps down. Ooh, big correction there for Timothy Reed. Yeah, I think he's trying to catch Costa, but how much is this Reed pushing and how much is it Costa maybe just kind of bringing this thing home?
Both. Coupled out with the lap traffic that we see on the racetrack, I'm sure that Juan Mi is being nice and careful going by lap traffic while Timothy Reed is on full charge mode. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the gap continue to shrink.
Yep, just needs enough to win, and that's all that matters. If you're in first, you're first. So Costa doesn't need to win by a mile, just comfortably, as Timothy Reed tries his darndest to chase him down in that Ferrari liveried machine. And we're going to come down to 3 to go. Oh, my goodness. We couldn't quite see it on screen, but Costa might be struggling. I wonder if there's damage on the car. We need an onboard replay of his run through the final turn because he was nearly out of control there.
Put down a 119.7, which is identical to Timothy Reed's lap time. However, that is off of their pace. They did have to go by a lap card. Let's check out this incident through the final turn.
Scene was a wild ride.
And Joe, so that's the moment that I was talking about. These cars are so low slung. I wondered if they were going to be bottoming out through that section at all. That was the first time, though, we've seen it.
Yeah, so he's got to be wary of that and just mind himself as he goes through some of these elevation changes around this circuit. Still has 2.5 seconds, so he didn't lose too much out of it. Like you said, last lap a 19.7. Reed also a 19.7, matching him down to a 10th. So just a couple more to survive, and Costa can open up with another salvo with a victory. Remember, he didn't get to do that last season in his championship season, as he had contact at Sebring to open things up. So this is a bit of a reversal of fortunes compared to how things kicked off last time out.
He keeps it a little bit more in check through the final turn. However, I do see the car just kind of doing its thing through there, a little bit of a yaw angle, and that's what you have to do when you're a fast racing car driver, is let the car drive itself a little.
That time a 19.2, setting the fastest lap of the race. Not by much, though. Reed also a 19.2. He was about 300ths off of him that time by. So very much making Juan Mi work for this at the end of the race. The good news for Costa is he doesn't have any lap traffic in front of him, with this being split races for the fields in this SOF race. They only had 18 starters, so as short of a lap as it is, 18 doesn't provide much in the way of lap traffic all throughout. But right now, Juan Mi Costa has about a lap and a half left to go. It's actually increased. It's up to 3 seconds. I wonder if Reed had a little bit of a hiccup there.
Well, they are having to deal with a few of those stragglers, so I think it depends on where they catch them on the racetrack. So I think maybe Timothy Reed was just maybe a little bit more unfortunate with where he caught that lapped car. And this is back to Timothy Vaughn chasing down Nathan Finnegan again. And I think that he's close enough that on the last lap he might be able to make a move. And don't blink twice, because right behind, about a second each, is 3 more cars.
Well, when Jason Clapper had a self-spin, he's lost the spot to Safiris. So
2 more cars then.
Yeah, Jason Clapper is only up 7 once again, as we are on the last lap of the race now, coming off the final corner. Whoa, Barry West with a problem, and he collects somebody else. That's Keith Herner.
That was a major incident. And I think it all started with Barry West and a self-spin and maybe just a very poor rejoin.
Yeah, I think you're right. Here's the incident with Barry. All on his own. Car gets a little loose, can't bring it back, and away it goes. Yeah, this has got to be a bad rejoin on his part. Oh, very unfortunate, honestly. But we got to go to Costa here, because with 2 turns left to go, the number 1 is ready to pick up a P1 here today. He's the current reigning champion, and he's going to try and make it back-to-back as Juan Mi Costa takes the win at the Red Bull Ring.
Fantastic run from that number 1 machine. Timothy Reed, trying to chase him down, will finish in 2nd place.
Kimmo Viekainen with an excellent podium. Got to check his stats to see how many he's racked up over the years, as Jack David Spickett just off of it in 4th. And then we come to Timothy Vaughn here and Nathan Finnegan. Will Finnegan get the last laugh? He will indeed. Excellent race there from the 9.
You see Tim Britton almost chasing this group down with Dylan Freckleton in tow as well. Joe, I know that they spread out a little bit, but oh man, look at this shot between our podium finishers.
Nicely done. Yeah, I think they wanted to get a little bit of a photo op there here at the end of the race, but we're going to take a chance to step away. We'll come back with the official results as well as driver interviews, so stick around.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome back to the Red Bull Ring. The opening race for the Sunday Grand Prix Series sees Juanmi Costa add to his tally of wins. Timothy Reed is second behind him today, with Kimmo Viekainen taking his 7th ever podium here in the Sunday Grand Prix Series. Jack David Spickett was 4th as Juho Raina finished 5th. Finnegan, a gain of 4 out there to take 6th place as Timothy Vaughn finishes 7th. And Tim Britton was 8th. Dylan Freckleton saw his race going well until it didn't, and unfortunately a little bit of an error sent him back to 9th as Kostas Zafiris rounds out your top 10.
In 11th, we have Jason Clapper, who looks like he still ends up being our biggest mover, up 7 positions after doing it, I think, 3 times today. Pablo Suarez, 12th. Sam Ryman, 13th. Keith Herner, 14th. And then we come to our first car, 1 lap down, Nicholas Morelli. And then the cars that had a DNF out there, Barry West, John Stevens, and Phil Reed.
And that'll take us to our 3rd place finisher, Kimmo Viekainen. And it's been about half a year, actually, since his last podium. So it's been a minute. Kimmo, glad to have you back to chat with you. But looked like you didn't have a whole lot going on for the majority of the race. Top 3 guys look like you all spread apart.
Yeah, those guys in front of me just had a little bit more pace. I couldn't match them today, and guys behind had a little battle, so I had a nice Sunday drive home to the podium here.
Now, we were kind of talking when we saw the qualifying that it looked like some of you guys had kind of responded a bit and caught up to Juanmi Costa in the off season to bring him a challenge, and then the race that sort of dissipated. Do you feel like you've tried to maybe take the fight to Juanmi, or are you just kind of doing your own thing and you don't worry about him?
At least in the summertime, I won't be practicing enough to really race with Juanmi. So let's see what happens in the next season. I think I will have more time to practice, and now I will just enjoy the racing here on the Sundays with these awesome gentlemen in this series.
Always. And let's also go back to the beginning here, because one thing we have to remember is you had a phenomenal start to this race. What did you do that really launched you off the line so well?
I raced only 2 races this week, and the previous one I spanned the tires at the start, so I put, I think, 1 click more to the clutch, and it really launched me this time with no problem, and I think with the best possible launch.
Well, definitely hold on to that setting then, because it worked a treat. Congratulations on a podium today.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
This is Kimmo Viekainen, our 3rd place finisher. Timothy Reed was 2nd place today, and Joey Atterbury has caught up with him.
Timothy Reed, first of all, congratulations on the 2nd place here at Red Bull Ring.
Thanks. Yeah, it feels good to try to be able to keep up with Juanmi. So I had a good race. It was fun.
Let's talk about that pace difference, because it seemed like the last half of the race, you were setting purple laps. And you were starting to reel him in a little bit. Maybe was a poor start the kind of thing that unfolded your race a little early?
Yeah, I think I had pretty good pace, and it was a terrible start, and I was running higher downforce, so the other guys were just blowing by me. So I was pretty bad, and that's kind of why I was really pushing to get past Kimmo. But I know, I was keeping pace with Juanmi, but the last couple laps, I think he just decided to actually go for it and set some fast laps. So I'm sure he had some in the tank, but I think it was still overall good pace. And Red Bull Ring is a great track. It's one of my favorites, and it's a lot of fun.
The racetrack is an amazing one to race. How do you feel it suits the Lotus 79s?
Oh, it's perfect. It's one of the best tracks for this car. Especially you get to crank on the downforce with minimal impact, and it's a lot of fun.
Well, I'm checking out. Let's see here. I think next race is going to be Fuji. How's your confidence level going into that one?
Not too good. That's a tough track, and it's low downforce. I'm not a big low downforce guy, so we'll see how it goes.
Well, Timothy Reed, before I let you go, anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Just thanks to you guys, do a great job, and everyone in the community helping to get races going and promote the series. Thank you all.
Well, that was Timothy Reed coming home second today.
And finally, we're going to be talking to Juan Mi Costa, his 14th career win here in the Sunday Grand Prix Series. Juan Mi, the car looked a little handful towards the end of the race. Was it struggling there for you?
The car no, is not the problem. The problem is the driver, always.
I like that. I like that philosophy. So, what were you experiencing though? What did it feel like that you were having problems with?
No, it's the pace I had. It's the difference between me and Tim today was the start only. We had the same pace as me. Same for his start. He couldn't make it to me early, but I think there was no difference between us today.
Now, last season for your championship, you started off a bit unfortunately, having a wreck on the first race and didn't score any points. Here you come out swinging, taking the bonus points for the. In fact, I think you got a perfect score on this one. Is this your answer to say I'm back and I'm gonna hold on to the crown?
But not for the last season. It's more for this track because it's my best result always on this track. Before that, I got only a P6, and the rest of results were DNF. So jumping from P6 to P1 is pretty good.
Absolutely. Well, again, congratulations. It looked like things were mostly under control, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you more this season.
Thank you.
So that was Juan Mi Costa, our winner here today, which is going to wrap us up with a big thank you to the community for bringing us back for another season of coverage here at the Sunday Grand Prix Series. Thanks to the team today, Joey, Ryan, and Dougie. And make sure to check out our social media, our website, and a merchandise store. But also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment. As we heard Joey mention, next race is going to be at Fuji Sunday, June 25th at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. Be sure to check out our other broadcasts that we have listed here. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.
Wow.